Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, verse 27. Niguda jatram pritutunga vakshasam. Avartana bimvali avagudarja. Digambaram vaktra vikirna kesham. Pralamba bahu musfama rutamabham. Niguda, covered, jatram, collarbone, purtu, broad, tunga, swollen, avakshasam, chest, avata, world, anabim, navel, valivolgu, striped, udaram, abdomen, cha, also, digambaram, dressed by all directions, naked, avaktra, curled, vikirna, scattered, kesham, hair, pralamba, elongated, bahum, hands, suamara uttama, the best among the gods, avam, hue. Translation: his collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. Purport: his bodily features indicated him to be different from common men. All the signs described in connection with the bodily features of Sukadeva Goswami are uncommon symptoms, typical of great personalities, according to the physiognomical calculations. His bodily hue resembled that of Lord Krishna, which is who is supreme among the gods, demigods, and all living beings. Translation: his collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. So the description started in the previous verse, and as I mentioned the other day, in the scriptures there are descriptions of the characteristics of a great personality or a Mahapurusha. So that term Mahapurusha is used for a person who of great status, who has great talents, and can be a leader of men, who has saintly qualities, etc. So the characteristics of these persons are described in various scriptures. And even today they're available. And therefore, when one looks at a person, one can somewhat, by his physical features, understand something of his real nature. It's not absolute, of course, but there's some degree of, we can interpret from the physical features the nature of the person. And we see that's the case of, for instance, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born. and then they described his various features. And based on that, they say he's a Mahapurusha because he has these particular qualities like that. So when great personalities are born, like Parikshit Maharaj, again, they'll give a description of this sort. So this is one way of, say, predicting the future of a person by looking at his qualities. Of course, if a person is a baby, it's very difficult to describe these things. But even with Lord Chaitanya, when he was a baby, they could somewhat intuit the qualities of his body. Now here, of course, Sukadev Goswami is more or less grown up. He's 16 years old, so his qualities are very evident. And I also mentioned the other day that, yes, this is one thing we can look at the wonderful features, but sometimes in the material world, this doesn't correspond to the nature of the person. So we have people that may look very wonderful, but they got nasty personalities. So we have actors and actresses and whatever. They look very nice, but when we look at their personal lives, they're not very good people at all. They got terrible personalities. So there's a problem when we see the features and then we try to say that's the person. But it is one way, and a common way of judging a person by looking at their features, and unfortunately it doesn't work out that way in terms of qualities, so then people get disappointed later on. But the feature is a very major attraction for people. So these are being codified of what are the beautiful features. It's not a concoction. There are certain features which distinguish the person. And these are described in these verses that also continue into the next verse as well. So the features are there, and in an ideal situation, those features indicate good karma, and hopefully then other good karmas will come, and then the person will have a nice personality as well. In the spiritual world, on the other hand, we don't have this problem because everything is perfect. So the form is perfect and the qualities are perfect by nature. So there is no contradiction between the two things. But the appearance will generally reflect the nature. Perfect though it is, there are different types of natures. So therefore, they'll be perfect in different ways. And that is why we'll find different forms of the Lord that look completely different. We'll find a four-armed feature of Vishnu and a two-armed feature of Krishna. So the form is different. They're both beautiful, but when we examine the qualities, they're slightly different. So even among forms of the Lord, therefore, there is a gradation of forms of the Lord according to their qualities that they show, either more qualities or less qualities, or more intensity of qualities and less intensity of qualities. So that's why in Chaitanya Charitamrita and in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, there's a gradation of the different forms of the Lord, from the very normal features to the more extraordinary features, to the most extraordinary features. And so at the top, we get Nrsimhadev and Ramchandra, and then Krishna, in that order. And Krishna's at the very top because he manifests the most qualities in the most extraordinary way. Ramchandra's next, and then Nrsimhadev's next, and then the others are below that, like Vamanadev and Varaha, etc. And then at the bottom we get the ones that are minimal, like Vyasadeva will manifest not many powers, just he writes books. Or Kapiladev, he speaks. So we have some that don't manifest too many powers and qualities, and then we have ones that manifest extraordinary powers and extraordinary qualities. And of those, we put Krishna at the top as the most attractive in all ways. So, therefore, and then along with the particular form, and then we have all the wonderful qualities, the two things go together. So Krishna's not only got the most wonderful qualities, but he's got the most beautiful form to go with it. So the two things correspond. So therefore, he's at the top in terms of beauty as well as qualities. So in this way, in the spiritual world, there's no contradiction between the qualities and the particular form. But of course, often the form will indicate the qualities. So Krishna's particular form is that of a young adolescent boy, and that the qualities of that person is very, very sweet, very intimate. Whereas we see the quality of Vishnu, he's got 4 arms and he's an adult, very regal, and he manifests Aishwarya rather than sweetness, power rather than sweetness. Or if we take Krishna and Dwarka, Krishna in Dwarka is also Krishna, so he's very beautiful, and he's more beautiful than the other forms of the Lord, but still, because he's got that position of being the leader of the Yadus and the king in his palace, therefore some of that sweetness does not manifest so nicely. So he's put in a lesser position than the form in Vrindavan. So in the Nectar Devotion, therefore, Krishna in Dwarka is classed as Purna, and in Mathura, because he does not manifest so much majesty, but it's a little bit less than Vrindavan, he's called Purnatara, which means more perfect. And then in Vrindavan he's called Purnatama, most perfect. So because he manifests that sweetness in full. But it's also mentioned that though he manifests all sweetness, that does not mean that therefore he's less powerful. Though he is sweet, most sweet, he is also most powerful. So it sounds like a little contradiction, but nevertheless, within Vrindavan itself, where Krishna is Purnatama, the highest and the sweetest, he also manifests greatest amounts of power. Of course, it is hidden from the people of Vrindavan, but nevertheless he manifests his power. So when he's a sweet little baby, a few days old, then he kills Putana. So he manifests great powers without even anyone knowing about it, how he did it. He just sucks out her life air, and nobody's able to understand how he did it. Usually when the Lord kills a demon, he'll fight with him or hit him or use a weapon or chakra or something. Krishna was a little baby, he didn't have any weapons, nothing. All he did was drink some milk, and then she just flopped over dead. So he has very interesting ways of displaying his powers in Vrindavan. But nevertheless, those powers are displayed in full in Vrindavan. So he kills so many demons in Vrindavan this way. So therefore, because Krishna does manifest all this sweetness, does not mean he does not manifest his powers. He also has most powers as well. So therefore it is said, whatever qualities are in other forms of the Lord are also in Krishna. Plus Krishna's got more. So therefore there's no need to worship anybody else. So though we may find Nrsimhadev attractive because of his ferocious nature, killing Hiranyakasipu, etc., that doesn't mean that Krishna doesn't have it. He's only sweet and gentle and whatever. Krishna can also be more ferocious than Nrsimhadev. So everything is in Krishna. So we simply worship Krishna, then we can be satisfied in all ways because he manifests all the qualities of all the other forms. And it is said that when Krishna appears in this material world, all the other forms of the Lord, like Nrsimha and Rama and Vishnu and Varaha, who have some abode somewhere in this universe, they all merge into Krishna when he appears on earth. So they're all within him. They all partake of his pastimes also. So therefore, this way Krishna is the most beautiful, and he has the most wonderful qualities as well. So this is, of course, expressed in the Vishnu Purana. The definition of Bhagavan is given as that person who possesses these 6 qualities. And among these qualities we have Shri and Yasa. So that's among the 6. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out, well, of all the qualities, these are the most important ones because they particularly indicate Krishna as having the most Shri, or the most beauty. And Yasa, which refers to fame, it means literally fame, so it means wonderful qualities. So the visual aspect of Krishna is the most remarkable and surprising and thrilling. And the qualities that he manifests through his pastimes with his devotees are also the most attractive and intimate. Okay? So that's represented by yasa, or fame. So those are considered to be the particular qualities of Krishna. Of course, they also apply to all forms of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is distinguished from other forms like Paramatma and Brahman. Brahman has no qualities. Paramatma has qualities in relation to the creation of the material world, like Mahavishnu glances, so he's a form of Paramatma and produces the material worlds. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu manifests Brahma. Brahma creates the planets. Paramatma enters into all the jivas. So these are aspects of the Lord in relation to the material world. So there's some qualities of power manifest and knowledge manifest. So one of the qualities, of course, of Bhagavan is jnana, knowledge, omniscience. Another is virya, great power, or aishvarya, also great power. So these are manifested in the Paramatma feature of the Lord. They're also manifest in Bhagavan because he's the source of the source of the source of everything. But the more important qualities of the Bhagavan are his personal qualities, not the power qualities of creating material universes, etc. The important qualities of Bhagavan are his relationships with his devotees. And the Sri and the Yasa best illustrate that. That is his beautiful form and his wonderful qualities, which enable him to express himself in various pastimes with his devotees. So the relationship with the devotees is manifest in Bhagavan, and these two qualities are there for that. So the two things go together. As I said, in the material world also we'll be a little disappointed if a person is very attractive physically speaking, but then when we get to know them, then we don't like them anymore because they got bad qualities. So there's a little bit of a disappointment. And on the other hand, yes, we can, if somebody's got good qualities, but they got terrible appearance, then of course we can tolerate the terrible appearance and close our eyes and just appreciate the wonderful qualities. But still, ideal situation would have both things. Then we're most satisfied of all. In terms of the material, satisfaction or whatever. So spiritually speaking, when we see descriptions of the Lord, then we have these two factors: the form of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord, and through that we develop our attraction. So particularly in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, we will see how Sukadeva Goswami describes the wonderful form of Krishna, which is attractive to all people, including the gopis. And even in this Damodar Lila, we'll find in the Astaka, the 8 verses that we sing, and then we see the form of Krishna with the 3 lines on his neck. Shrireka Akanta. Like that, and his lotus eyes, his lotus feet, etc., his belly, all these, and his complexion, all this is described in the form of Krishna. And we'll find many of these forms described throughout the Bhagavatam. So in the spiritual world, there's no contradiction. It's not this is superficial, because those physical features of Krishna also indicate his very nature. So then his qualities are very similar to that, the physical qualities, and they're all perfect. So we'll find wonderful descriptions of Krishna, and of course other forms of the Lord as well, very beautiful, including Vishnu or Narasimha, etc. And they're all very attractive to the devotees. And then we'll find descriptions of their qualities, which are revealed through the pastimes. And these are also very attractive to the devotees. So these two things, the form of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord, if we know these things, this helps us develop some attraction for the Lord and helps us increase our devotion to the Lord. If we try to express devotion, but we have no idea who is the object of our devotion, it's very difficult to be devoted. If we don't know any of the qualities and we don't even know what they look like, It is very, very difficult to develop any devotion. Of course, in India, they have this custom of arranged marriages. So you don't know who the person is before you get together. So it's rather shocking for the Western world. They say, well, how can you do that? Because you don't even know each other, and then you get married, and then you develop a relationship later. So that's so, but eventually they do get to know each other. They see each other, they know each other, and they interact, and they get to know each other, and through that they develop their attraction. So it's not that it's blind completely, but if you have a relationship forever of a marriage where nobody saw the other person and interacted with it, and they're supposed to develop affection, it would be impossible. So, therefore, though holy name is the most powerful thing, just chant the holy name, it said that along with that, to make it very, let's say, speedy, the whole process, if we understand something of the nature of the Lord with his qualities and his wonderful form, this helps us develop the potency of the name. We can understand it. And if, of course, if we have opposite conceptions, we're thinking Krishna, we think of something completely opposite of Krishna, then that's negative. We can't advance too nicely with that. So if we have these favorable conceptions of the Lord's form and his qualities, then it helps us develop our attraction more. It's easier for us. So therefore, some knowledge of Bhagavatam, along with the chanting of the holy name, is a very powerful combination for us. So therefore, we have the holy name as our main feature, but we should also have the books. So we have Bhagavatam to help us develop knowledge of Krishna and his wonderful qualities and form. So that's one advantage of having these literatures. It helps us understand who that goal is and develop attraction for Krishna, etc. So this is reflected in the devotees of the Lord. So in the spiritual world, the form of that devotee and his particular qualities go together also. Then they're both perfect. So the particular form of that person will indicate something of their nature and the type of service they do as well. And in this way, for instance, the cowherd boys, what is the form? They're cowherd boys like Krishna. They look very much like him. They dress very much like him. And they're the same size. They're the same age. They're all slightly older, slightly younger, but basically the same age. And that's very suitable for Sakya Rasa, because they're both all equals. So the equal age, equal form, equal size, etc. And they equal qualities, and they all associate very nicely together. Very, very convenient for them. So they have that particular form. Madhurya Rasa, the other, has different. We have Krishna and we have gopis. Not the same. Gopis are female, Krishna is male. And that is necessary for Madhurya Rasa. So that very form, they're also cowherds, by the way. Gopis are also cowherd ladies. But they have the female form. And that expresses their rasa with Krishna. And similarly, we have Vatsalya Rasa. They're also cowherds, like Krishna, but they're older, bigger. They're elders. So we have mothers and fathers, and they have a natural relationship as parents of Krishna. So they have similarities. They also have differences in terms of size and qualities, etc. So therefore, in the spiritual world, the forms of the particular devotees somewhat also indicate their very rasa and their nature, etc. as well. The two things go together very suitably. So they have particular forms suitable for their particular service to the Lord. And this also applies to other forms of the Lord as well. So for those who are in Vaikuntha and they admire Vishnu, then they get forms similar to Vishnu, and they have 4 arms. And they also can develop similar types of opulence and powers, etc., almost like Vishnu himself. So the devotees of the Lord are more or less a reflection of the Supreme Lord in various features. And that is mentioned here in this last phrase where it talks about the Abha, or the hue, the complexion of Sukadeva Goswami. The complexion was Su-amra Uttama. Amra means deathless. Mara means death. Amara means deathless. So this refers to the Devatas. Amra, Devata. The best Devata. The best among all the gods. So the best among everybody, of course, Krishna. So that's why I said the best among the gods, parentheses, Krishna. So Sukadeva had the complexion of Krishna. And we know what Krishna's complexion is. That is dark like a monsoon cloud. That's Krishna's color. So Sukadeva Goswami had a complexion like Krishna, a reflection of Krishna's reflection. So that's what Prabhupada says in the translation. The hue of his body reflected that of Krishna, Lord Krishna. Similar type of hue, like a reflection of Krishna. So people often ask, why is he blue? Why couldn't he be green or gold or whatever like that? Why particularly blue? Of course, there's no direct answer given anywhere for that. But there is also in Rasa, where it discusses in Nectar Devotion and other works also of Rasa, even material Rasa, they describe the qualities of Rasa. Then they describe the colors of the Rasas. So Madhurya Rasa is Shama. That's the color. Madhurya Rasa is this dark blue color. That's the color of Shama. So naturally then Krishna, his most outstanding feature is Madhurya Rasa. So therefore color would be Shama. There's one explanation. Therefore the devotees of Krishna often have this color as well. Uddhava had this color because he could understand the intimate relationship that Krishna had with the gopis. And here we have Sukadeva Goswami with this similar hue. So it is said in the beginning of the Bhagavatam that the Bhagavatam is the highest fruit on the tree of the Vedas, but it was made even sweeter by the parrot, Sukadeva. So when it came out of Sukadeva Goswami's mouth, the Bhagavatam became sweeter. How is that? Why? And the answer is because he was able to relish, comprehend and relish the Madhurya Rasa of Krishna and the gopis more even than others, including Vasudeva, who wrote the work. So because he could appreciate the qualities of Madhurya Rasa and Krishna's interaction with the gopis in the Rasa Leela, etc. Therefore, he is considered to be higher, and when he expresses the Bhagavatam, it becomes sweeter because of that, due to his particular realization. So naturally then, if he has this darkish color like Krishna, then very good, because he's got the same Madhurya Rasa of Krishna. He can understand it very nicely and he appreciates it very nicely. These are some of the auspicious qualities of Sukadeva Goswami. We'll see that often these qualities are similar to when we see Krishna. Here's Sukadeva is described as having a deep navel, like a whirlpool, avartanabi. So we'll find the same description for Krishna. He has a very deep navel. And the chest here is very broad and very high. He's got a very big chest. This is also the description of Krishna. And of course of many personalities. Even Lord Chaitanya is described as being like that. Thin waist and broad chest, like a lion. So that's the image often used for great personalities. They have a broad chest and a thin waist like a lion. So here we see that Sukadeva Goswami also has this nature. We have auspicious qualities, but to some degree they were hidden because he wasn't trying to display them at all, and he was more or less acting as avaduta, which means like a madman also. And of course he was naked and whatever, so everyone thought he was mad. So in some sense he was covered, but those who had good intelligence and vision and appreciation, could understand the auspicious nature even of his external features. And thus they could admire him because they understood that internally he was a great personality representing the Supreme Lord. Okay, any question there?
This hierarchy you were mentioning about Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna, where does Lord Chaitanya fit in?
Oh, he's actually like Krishna. He's Swayam Bhagavan Krishna himself, taking the mood of Radha, but he's also covered avatar, Chanda avatar, so he hides his powers and his qualities. So therefore he doesn't manifest the same type of sweetness as Krishna or the same powers as Krishna. They're all hidden. But he's more, we could say he's on equal level, but it's kind of hidden. It's like Sukadev's hidden. So Lord Chaitanya hides all of his sweetness and his powers. And for that reason, generally when we represent Lord Chaitanya, we don't want to represent him as Krishna because he's distinctly different. He's like the devotee of Krishna, taking the mood of Radha. But nevertheless, he's not different from Krishna, so he's like Swayam Bhagavan on the top.
I'm also trying to understand the gradations and expansions of Krishna. It's still, I think it'll always be maybe over my head. But particularly, I find it easy to understand like Purusha avatars and avatars dealing with the material world, and even Vaikuntha as being expansions non-different from Krishna. But when it comes to like Balaram or even like Lord Chaitanya, take Balaram first, like because there's some relationship like rasa between Balaram and Krishna. It's hard to understand how Balaram can. Is there an absolute non-difference, or is Balaram an individual personality with Krishna? And then that would make it two personalities of Godhead, but we hear there's only one personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
So it's a bit.
Yeah. Now, Bhagavan is one, but he may have many forms. And when we say form, then it means they're separate. You know, one form is here, one form is here. That's our material conception, at least. So they're different in one sense, because we say, okay, Nrsimhadeva's got a particular form, Rama's got a form, Balaram's got a form, and here's Krishna here. So they're all Bhagavan, but at the same time they have different forms. So it's a little difficult for us to conceive because we don't have that experience in the material world. One person's got one particular form, another person's got another form, and one person doesn't have different forms and be the same person. It's a little peculiar for us. But this is, we can say, the inconceivable nature of the Lord is something beyond our material conception, that God is one, but he can have many forms. Of course, even to God to have one form is difficult for most people to understand. That's why they go for Brahman instead. And most religions of the world will not admit a form to God. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, etc., Jain, Sikh, no form at all of God. What to speak of many forms. So to get to just having one form of God, whoever it is, even that's very difficult for most people to accept. Because we carry over our material conception to that form, and they say, well, if he's got a form like this, that means he's limited to a certain size. And how can God be limited by size? So, there's many logical problems with it when we talk about form. So when we talk about form, we're saying it's form but spiritual. So therefore, it's not limited by our material conception of what a form should be. So we talk about the unlimited nature of God. He's Vibhu, he's all-pervading. At the same time, he is limited by his form. But it's not like material limitation, like we are limited. It's quite different, but difficult for us to conceive of. So one form is difficult, so we have many forms. That's even more difficult for people to understand, materially speaking, because we have no experience of it. But this is the nature of the Lord. So in one sense, yes, he's the same person, but at the same time, we see that when he is Nrsimhadev or when he's Balaram right next to Krishna, how could they be the same person if they're interacting with each other? So in a sense, they develop a separate type of personalities also along with that. And at the same time, they're one. So how is it so? We cannot really conceive of how it is so, but they do operate as separate personalities. So Balaram gets angry at Krishna sometimes. I guess they do this, they have separate personalities even. So but this is part of the inconceivable nature of the Supreme Lord, how he can do this. Even Krishna divides himself up into many forms also. So he's 3 billion forms in the Ras Leela, he has 16,108 forms in Dwarka, and he's doing different things in different places simultaneously. And he's the same person, which is difficult to understand. It was so perplexing that when Narada Muni saw this, he was astonished. Though Narada Muni does see all the different forms, because he can go to any place and he can see Vamana and Varaha, and he can go to the spiritual world, he can go anywhere in the material world, and he's there throughout the life of Brahma. But even he's surprised when he saw Krishna in all 16,108 forms, acting differently and doing different things as if he were a different person, but he's the same person. So it's surprising even to Narada Muni, what to speak of us.
So the standout feature attributes of Krishna, we always see in the nectar of devotion is Krishna's got 4 particular qualities that Lord Vishnu doesn't have, like he practices the attractor of maybe millions of mindful devotees, all wonderful pastimes, plays the flute like Narada. So where does that stand, like when we talk about the attributes of Balaram? We see equal in those sort of attributes there, or how does that...
Almost equal, but not quite. So he's almost equal to the extent that in Vrindavan he even has a Rasa Leela with his gopis. So he has Madhurya Rasa also of a very high degree as well. But at the same time, he has less power than Krishna, and that is illustrated in the bewilderment of Brahma Leela. So for 1 year, when Krishna became all the calves and cowherds, nobody knew about it. And even Balaram didn't know about it. He could not detect it also for 1 year. And when then after 1 year he noticed it was very strange, because all the calves and the cows were so attracted to the calves from the previous year, and when they gave birth to new calves, they weren't attracted to them. They were only attracted to the old calves, who were actually Krishna, and giving all the milk to them instead. This is very peculiar. And then he saw the cowherd men were so attracted to their sons like never before. For 1 year they were absorbed in their sons more than they were ever previously. So this is very strange, and he thought, who could do this? There's something wrong here. It can't be demons, because I know I can detect a demon. It cannot be devatas or sages, because I could also detect that. So who could do this? And they said, only Krishna can do this, because he's more powerful than I am. So then he looked very carefully, and he said, it's all Krishna. But this shows that Krishna had the yoga maya to bewilder even Balaram, who was also Supreme Lord.
How the different features one has, and then one has the advantage of cultivating further. So from that it appears that association is the key factor, because even Krishna's own son, Bhaumasura, he became Himalayan, and even Vivida without Logram's pastime due to that association. So it would seem even us coming to Krishna consciousness, or children born in Krishna consciousness, the key factor is always being vigilant of association.
Of course, in the material world, we got our karma coming with us from previous birth, with a particular body and particular nature, etc. And then we have the bhakti influence, how much devotion we did in our past life, so that's coming through to the Atma. the two things don't always correspond. We have bad karma and good bhakti, and they go together. So therefore, we are a devotee, but we have real bad karmas. That may happen. Or we may have good karmas also. We may have bhakti as well. And those two match up then. In either case, that bhakti will develop due to association, mercy of devotees, through which we get mercy of Krishna. So that's the main hope for the devotees, that we associate with devotees, and then we can develop nicely. If we have previous bhakti, very, very good, but that has to be developed further, and that will develop in association with devotees. That's the main source of, let's say, progress for us.
Good question. You talk about Balaram, Krishna, and the different forms of the Lord. I was just wondering, how different, they all have different, slightly different aspects.
Yeah.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda is a bit more merciful than that. And I always hear that you should pray for strength to Lord, Balaram. And I was just wondering, as we explained the differences in how he's Krishna still, and I was just wondering, what is the difference between praying to Lord Balaram for strength, where it says just an example, and praying to Krishna for strength? Will it be the same result at the end, or what?
Yeah, well, Balaram represents, he's Adi Guru. What's this? Because he is his expansion is Mahavishnu, Mahasankarshan, who is the shelter of all the jivas in the material world. So therefore, he's considered to be Adi Guru. And then Nityananda is his, or we can say they're the same, non-different from Nityananda, who's Balaram also. So then he also is like Adi Guru. So in general, then we have Guru, and then we can think of Adi Guru as being Nityananda or Balaram. But then we have the other approach, and that is we approach Krishna through Radha, particularly from Madhurya Rasa. So that she's also another guru for us. If we're going for Madhurya Rasa. If we're going for Sakya Rasa, then we can go through Balaram.
But if you pray to Krishna and pray to Balaram, it's the same effect of you, isn't it?
Well, ultimately we can just say pray to Krishna, but generally if you want Madhurya Rasa, we have to go through Radharani. If you want others, I suppose we can go to Krishna or Balaram or whatever, but we also have to go through Guru, which may be Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru, whatever.
It's surprising to me that Srimad Swami had so deep insight to Madhurya Rasa and all Krishna's qualities. He mentions that he was a personalist as well.
He started out. When he was in the womb, he wouldn't come out because he was Atmagani, he was Atmarama. Yeah, what's the use of coming out in this material world? Because I'll just look at the material world and get attracted to Maya. So I'll just stay in the womb and be absorbed in Brahman. And when he came out finally, he walked away from Vyasadeva and went in the forest, and he was sitting in Samadhi in Brahman again. But he got attracted to the Bhagavatam, and then he became a great devotee. So in other words, the Atmarama verse in the first canto of Bhagavatam discusses how even the Atmaramas become attracted to the pastimes of Krishna. So it is possible for an impersonalist to turn into a devotee if he can hear about Krishna. So that's the case of Sukadeva Goswami through Vyasadeva's disciples and finally Vyasadeva. And of course the mercy of Krishna, because Krishna gave him some blessing when he was in the womb.
So isn't this just a pastime? I know there's some versions depict that Sukadeva Goswami is actually Radharani's personal parent. So isn't this whole appearance of him as impersonal, isn't it just a pastime?
Possibly, though in the Bhagavatam, as far as Bhagavatam is concerned, I don't see any comment like that by our acharyas that he was actually, this was just like a pastime, whereas with Narada Muni, when he became the maidservant, we find that more or less a pastime, because actually he comes out as a Shakta Vaishavatar in the first day of Brahma in his lifetime. So But I don't see any comment like that for Sukadeva Goswami as being an eternal associate who's just doing the pastime thing. Perhaps it is, but.
But then is that story of him as, or that picture of him as well around his parents, is that correct?
Well, I think Ramayaswamy said it was from the Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Perhaps it's there, but I haven't seen it anywhere else as far as commentary is concerned, like Sanatan Rupa or Vishwanath or Jiva. I don't think I've seen it. Their previous history. They don't generally go into previous histories. Like there's also Putana was so and so in a previous life or whatever like that. So we don't see that. Or what is it? Yeah, like that. So they don't go into previous lifetimes so much.
Doesn't have to understand that he is the parent of Radharani.
I don't know. We have to see the statement actually. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,